Have you ever walked away from a conversation like really feeling like you connected with someone, like you came away with a new perspective or maybe even feeling a little bit wiser? Well, today we are diving deep into how to have those kinds of conversations, the ones that leave you feeling energized and inspired.
It is interesting because, so often we think about being interesting so we can be interesting, but the real secret is actually being interested in the other person.
Okay, so that makes sense.
Hmm.
But like, how do you actually show someone that you are really interested in what they have to say?
Well, just think about how you feel when you know someone's truly listening to you and they're not interrupting you or just waiting for their turn to talk. It makes you feel valued, right? Like what you have to say actually matters. And that's the feeling we want to create in others when we're talking to them.
I see what you mean. So it is less about like being a brilliant orator and more
Yeah.
about creating that space for the other person to shine.
Exactly. And one of the most powerful ways to do that is by asking questions. Asking questions that invite the other person to share their thoughts and experiences in a meaningful way.
So not just like your typical, how are you or what do you do questions.
Right. Those kinds of questions tend to shut down conversations before they even have a chance to start. Instead, try asking questions that spark curiosity and invite the other person to share something a little deeper about themselves. So, for example, instead of asking someone if they like their job, you could ask, "What's something about your job that most people don't realize?"
Ooh, I like that. It is unexpected,
It'll
and it encourages the other person to think beyond just the surface level. It is like you are giving them permission to share something truly unique about their experience.
Exactly. And that's how you start uncovering those hidden gems, those shared interests and surprising connections that make a conversation come alive.
And speaking of shared interests, I think this ties into the idea of finding common ground. You know, those little sparks of connection that just make a conversation feel effortless?
Absolutely. When you find common ground with someone, it creates a sense of rapport and trust. And that's the foundation for any truly engaging conversation. And one way to uncover those connections is by asking open-ended questions. Open-ended questions that invite the other person to share their passions, values, or even their dreams.
So something like, if you could snap your fingers and be an expert in any one skill, what would it be?
Yes. Or, what's one thing you're really looking forward to in the next year? These kinds of questions reveal so much about a person's motivations and aspirations.
I love that. It is like you are getting a glimpse into their inner world and they're getting a glimpse into yours. And that shared vulnerability is what creates that sense of intimacy and connection.
Precisely. And sometimes the most unexpected questions can lead to the most fascinating conversations. It's all about being curious and willing to explore those uncharted territories.
This is reminding me of something I struggle with. Those awkward silences that sometimes pop up in conversations.
Yeah.
It is like my mind goes blank and I panic and I wonder what to say next.
Oh, it happens to everyone. But instead of dreading those silences, think of them as opportunities
Opportunities. To do what?
to reflect, to connect, to ask a truly insightful question. Instead of scrambling to fill the silence, take a moment to consider what the other person has shared. Ask yourself, what resonated with me? What surprised me? What do I genuinely want to know more about?
So it's not about avoiding silences altogether, but rather about using them strategically.
Exactly. And sometimes just acknowledging the silence can be a powerful way to create a moment of shared vulnerability. You could say something like, "This is making me think,"
Yeah.
or "I'm just taking a moment to process what you said."
That takes the pressure off, doesn't it?
Mhm.
It allows both people to relax and just be present in the moment rather than feeling like they need to constantly be on.
Yes, and it often leads to even more meaningful conversations.
This is so insightful. It is like you're completely reframing the way I think about conversations. Instead of seeing them as like performances, you're encouraging me to see them as opportunities for connection and discovery.
That's the heart of it, really. When you approach conversations with that mindset, you'll find yourself having richer, more fulfilling interactions with everyone you meet.
And speaking of fulfilling interactions, I think it's important to acknowledge that conversations aren't always easy breezy. Sometimes we encounter people who have very different opinions or experiences than our own.
Absolutely. But that's where things get really interesting.
Okay, help me understand this. How do you gracefully navigate a conversation with someone who holds completely different views than your own?
It starts with respect. Even if you vehemently disagree with someone, remember that they're entitled to their own perspective. And instead of trying to change their mind, focus on understanding their point of view.
So put those debating skills aside and really listen.
Exactly. Ask clarifying questions like, "Help me understand why you feel that way," or "What experiences have led you to that perspective?"
This is a great reminder that conversations aren't always about being right. They're about connecting with another human being, learning from their experiences, and expanding our own perspectives.
You got it. And sometimes the most challenging conversations can be the most rewarding. You might not change each other's minds, but you might walk away with a new appreciation for another point of view. And that in itself is a valuable outcome.
This is making me rethink the way I approach disagreements in general. Instead of shutting down or getting defensive, I'm going to try to lean into that curiosity and see where it takes me.
I love that. Remember, every conversation is an opportunity to learn and grow.
This is all so inspiring.
Yeah.
I am already feeling more confident about navigating those tricky conversational waters.
That's fantastic. But we've only just scratched the surface. There are so many more strategies and techniques we can explore to help you become a truly masterful conversationalist.
Wow, I can't wait to dive even deeper.
You know, one of the things that often trips people up in conversations is that dreaded small talk.
Oh, don't get me started on small talk. It can feel so superficial, like you're just going through the motions.
I hear you. But what if I told you that small talk can actually be a gateway to deeper, more meaningful conversations?
Okay, I am intrigued. How do you turn those seemingly mundane exchanges into something more substantial?
It is all about being present and looking for those subtle openings to steer the conversation in a more engaging direction. Like,
Yeah.
take the classic, "How was your weekend?" question, for example. Instead of just saying, "Fine, thanks," try sharing a specific detail that genuinely sparked your interest.
So instead of, "It was good," I could say, "It was great. I finally checked out that new bookstore downtown. It is amazing."
Perfect. You have shared something personal, and now you have opened the door for the other person to ask follow-up questions. Maybe they are also a bookworm, or maybe they have a favorite bookstore they could recommend.
I see what you mean. It is about finding those little threads of connection that can lead to a richer conversation.
Exactly, and those threads are everywhere if you know how to look for them. Another strategy is to ask questions that invite the other person to share their expertise or passions. People love to talk about things they're knowledgeable about, so tap into that.
So if someone mentions they love to cook, you could ask them for their favorite recipe or cooking tip.
That is a great example. Or if someone is talking about a recent trip, you could ask, "What was the most surprising thing you discovered?" You are basically giving them a platform to share something unique and memorable.
And by doing that, you are showing them that you value their experiences and perspectives.
Precisely. And that is how you create a space for genuine connection. But of course, it is also important to be mindful of boundaries.
Right. There is a fine line between showing interest and being intrusive. How do you know when you have crossed that line?
It is all about reading the cues. Pay attention to the other person's body language and tone of voice. Are they leaning in, making eye contact and responding enthusiastically? Or are they giving you short, closed-off answers and looking for an escape route?
That makes sense. You want to make sure you are not making the other person feel uncomfortable.
Exactly. It is always better to err on the side of caution. And remember, sometimes people just need a little time to warm up. Do not take it personally if they are not instantly sharing their deepest thoughts and feelings.
This is really making me rethink the whole concept of small talk. It is not about filling the silence with meaningless chatter. It is about using those initial exchanges as a springboard to something more meaningful.
Could not have said it better myself. Now let us shift gears a bit and talk about something that can be even more challenging than small talk: handling disagreements gracefully.
Ooh, yes. This is something I definitely struggle with. It is so easy to get defensive or feel like you have to win an argument.
I hear you, but here's the thing. Disagreements do not have to be combative. They can actually be opportunities for growth and understanding if we approach them with the right mindset.
Okay, I am all ears. How do you turn a potential argument into a productive conversation?
First and foremost, check your ego at the door. Remember, it is not about proving that you are right. It is about exploring different perspectives and gaining a deeper understanding of the issue at hand.
Easier said than done, right? But I see what you mean. It is about shifting from a me versus you mentality to a we are in this together kind of approach.
Exactly. And when you come from that place of collaboration, the conversation automatically becomes less charged. You are no longer trying to tear each other down. You are working together to find common ground.
But what if you fundamentally disagree with someone's core beliefs? How do you navigate that without things getting heated?
It is all about respectful communication. Listen attentively to what the other person has to say, even if it challenges your own beliefs. Ask clarifying questions to make sure you truly understand their perspective. And when it is your turn to speak, Express your own thoughts and feelings calmly and respectfully without resorting to personal attacks or inflammatory language.
So even if you do not change each other's minds, you can still walk away from the conversation with a sense of mutual respect and understanding.
Exactly. And who knows, you might even learn something new along the way. Sometimes the most unexpected conversations can lead to the most profound insights.
This is such a valuable reminder that conversations are not just about exchanging information. They are about connecting with other human beings, exploring different perspectives,
Right.
and expanding our understanding of the world.
Beautifully said. And there is one more element that I think is crucial for taking conversations to that next level, the art of storytelling.
Ooh, I love a good story. But how do you weave storytelling into everyday conversations without it feeling forced or out of place?
It is all about finding those relatable moments that illustrate a point or spark a connection. Let us say you were talking about a recent travel experience. Instead of just listing the places you visited, share a specific anecdote that captures the essence of the trip.
So instead of saying, I went to Paris, you could say, I was walking along the sand at sunset and I saw this street musician playing the most beautiful melody.
Exactly. You have painted a picture with your words, and now the listener is engaged and invested in your experience.
And it is those details that make a story come alive.
Yeah.
It is not just about the facts. It is about the emotions, the sensory experiences, the little moments that make a story memorable.
You got it. And when you share those details, you create a connection with the listener. They can imagine themselves in that situation, feeling those emotions, experiencing those sights and sounds.
It is like you are inviting them into your world.
Precisely. And when you do that, conversations become so much more than just an exchange of information. They become shared experiences. And that is where the real magic happens.
This is so inspiring. I am starting to see conversations in a whole new light. But I have to admit, there are still times when I feel like I just do not know what to say. Like my mind goes blank and I end up fumbling for words.
That is completely normal. Everyone experiences those moments of conversational awkwardness from time to time. The key is to not let those moments derail the entire conversation.
Okay, any tips for gracefully navigating those mental blanks?
One of the most effective strategies is to simply acknowledge that you are drawing a blank. You could say something like, that is a great question. Let me think for a moment. Or, I am not sure how to articulate this right now, but...
So instead of pretending to have all the answers, you're being authentic and vulnerable.
Exactly. And that vulnerability can actually be disarming. It shows the other person that you are human just like them, and that it is okay to not have all the answers.
This is such a relief. I always feel like I need to have some witty remark or brilliant insight ready at all times. But it's actually okay to just pause, reflect, and be honest about where you are at.
Absolutely. Sometimes the most powerful conversations come from those moments of shared vulnerability. And speaking of vulnerability, let us talk about the role of nonverbal communication in conversations.
Ah, yes, body language. It is amazing how much we communicate without even saying a word. But how do we make sure our nonverbal cues are sending the right message?
It starts with awareness. Pay attention to your posture, your facial expressions, your eye contact. Are you leaning in and engaging with the other person? Or are you slouching and looking away? Are you smiling and nodding? Or are you frowning and crossing your arms?
So basically, we want to make sure our bodies are aligned with our words. If we are asking someone about their day, we should not be checking our phones or fidgeting with our keys.
Exactly. Our nonverbal cues should convey that we are present, interested, and engaged in the conversation. And just as importantly, we need to be attuned to the other person's nonverbal cues. Are they mirroring our body language, suggesting a sense of rapport? Or are they sending signals that they are feeling uncomfortable or disengaged?
I never thought about it that way, but it makes perfect sense. It is like you are creating a feedback loop. You're sending out signals, receiving signals, and constantly adjusting your approach based on those nonverbal cues.
Precisely. It is a subtle dance, but it is essential for creating a sense of flow and connection in any conversation. And the more you practice paying attention to these nonverbal nuances, the more intuitive it will become.
This is all so fascinating. It is like we are peeling back the layers of conversation and uncovering all these hidden dynamics.
That is the beauty of it, really. There is always something new to discover, something new, to learn something new to try.
Well, I am feeling inspired to put all this new knowledge into practice, but I have to admit I am a bit overwhelmed by all the information. It is like a conversation toolbox with all these different tools. But how do I know which tool to use in each unique situation?
That is a great question, and it is something we will definitely delve into further. Remember, mastering the art of conversation takes time and practice. It is about experimenting with different techniques, finding what feels authentic to you, and constantly refining your approach.
This has been such an eye-opening journey so far. I am already feeling more confident about navigating those sometimes tricky waters of conversation. But I am definitely eager to dive even deeper and explore even more strategies.
Me too. There is still so much to uncover. It is more about cultivating a certain mindset, wouldn't you say?
Exactly. It is like we have been given this incredible toolkit filled with all sorts of conversational gadgets. But it is up to us to decide which ones to use and how to use them in each unique situation.
And just like any craft mastering, the art of conversation takes practice. The more you experiment with these different techniques, the more natural and effortless they will become.
I love that you use the word experiment.
Hmm.
It takes the pressure off. It's not about being perfect. It's about trying things out, seeing what works, and having fun along the way.
Absolutely. And remember, every conversation is a learning opportunity. Even those conversations that don't go exactly as planned can teach us something valuable about ourselves and how we interact with others.
That is such a great perspective. It is like those failed conversations are actually data points, helping us refine our approach and become even better communicators.
Precisely. And speaking of refining our approach, there is one final strategy that can truly elevate your conversational game: being mindful of your nonverbal communication.
Ah, yes, body language. It is amazing how much we communicate without even saying a word. But how can we make sure our nonverbal cues are sending the right message?
It all starts with awareness. Pay attention to your posture, your facial expressions, your eye contact. Are you leaning in and engaging with the other person, or are you slouching and looking away? Are you mirroring their body language, subtly signaling that you are on the same wavelength?
So basically, we want to make sure our bodies are aligned with our words.
Yeah,
If we're asking someone about their day, we should not be checking our phones or fidgeting with our keys.
exactly. Our nonverbal cues should convey that we are present, interested, and engaged in the conversation.
And on the flip side, if someone is giving us those closed-off vibes, arms crossed, avoiding eye contact, we might want to reassess our approach.
Absolutely. Reading those nonverbal cues is essential for navigating conversations effectively. It is like having a secret decoder ring that allows you to understand the unspoken messages being exchanged.
This has been such a fascinating exploration. We have covered so much ground, from asking the right questions to sharing our own stories, from handling disagreements gracefully to being mindful of our body language. I am starting to feel like a conversation ninja.
It is amazing how much we can learn when we take a deep dive into these seemingly simple interactions, is not it?
It really is. And the best part is, these strategies are applicable in all sorts of situations, from casual chats with friends to job interviews to presentations. They're like universal keys that can unlock deeper connections and more meaningful interactions in every aspect of our lives.
Exactly. The ability to communicate effectively is a superpower that can benefit us in countless ways. And the more we practice and refine our conversational skills, the more powerful we become.
Well, I am feeling inspired to put all this new knowledge into practice. I have a feeling my conversations are about to get a whole lot more engaging and fulfilling. And who knows, maybe I will even inspire someone else to become a conversation ninja along the way.
That is the spirit. Remember, the journey to becoming a master conversationalist is ongoing. There's always something new to learn, something new to explore, and someone new to connect with.
And that is what makes it so exciting. So to all our listeners out there, as you go about your day, I encourage you to be present, be curious, and be bold in your conversations. You never know what amazing connections and insights await you just around the corner.
Beautifully said. Now go out there and spark some meaningful conversations. We will be right here cheering you on.
Thanks for joining us on English Podcast 2.0. Until next time, keep those conversations flowing.